Hi folks, and welcome to On the Block. I'm Ed Wilkinson, and today we're in beautiful Bensonhurst in St. Athanasius Parish. We're going to be talking with Father Ron D'Antonio.
Thank
Father
you,
Ron,
Ed.
you've been here quite a while now, huh?
I'm here 14 years.
This your longest assignment?
Yes, my last assignment in St. Fidelis was 12 years. But
So
I'm here 14
that's
years.
called stability, huh?
That's right. 4 parishes in 41 years.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. So I understand that you're a movie buff because
I am.
you've appeared on our famous show Classics here with
Yes, I
Dan
did.
Roebuck, and
Right.
they always call you because you're an expert on the old time.
I would say an expert, but well, as a matter of fact, I had asked my father. My father and mother never named the 3 of us after relatives. And I always asked him, why did you name me Ronald? He says, after Ronald Coleman,
Oh, gee.
the actor. So I guess because of that, I developed an interest in the movies. Yeah, but I have a large collection of Blu-rays and DVDs. And my TV is set to turn to classic movies when it goes on automatically. I like the movies.
Yeah. And
Well, I always wanted to be an actor when I was a kid.
Oh, where did that come from?
I don't know. You know, my 2 grandmothers said to me, when you grow up, you're going to be a priest. I said, I want to be a movie star. And I remember as a young boy, my father taught me a song, I Want to Be Loved with Inspiration. I guess it was from the 40s or 50s. And one afternoon, it was a Sunday, we were on my grandmother's stoop. And he asked me to stand up and sing the song. So I sang it, and I took a nice bow. But then as I got older, I was more reserved and a little shy, so I sort of fell away from that.
Yeah. When you were young, was there a neighborhood movie theater that you would go to and watch
Well,
the features?
I used to call it the Little Broadway. On Nostrand Avenue was the Linden Theater. On Church Avenue between Nostrand and Rogers was the Granada. Then on Flatbush we had the RKO Kenmore, the Astor, the Albemarle, the Lowe's Kings, and the Rialto.
Well, what happened? I mean, I remember those same neighborhood theaters too, and now you don't really have those. You have the multiplexes, right?
That's
And,
right. Yeah.
It's different.
I don't know what it is, whether, you know, with the age of television and what it is, but it's a shame. All those Broadway houses are now complexes, business offices.
And they were
They're
big,
gone.
beautiful theaters too.
Right.
Particularly remember the Kings, which is now
Lowe's
reopened.
Kings.
Have you been there since they
I
reopened?
haven't been there since it reopened.
Beautiful.
No.
Oh, it's gorgeous. But that's a throwback. You know,
That's
it's a
it.
throwback.
That's it.
Now you have a lot of memorabilia also, right?
I do.
You collect things.
Oh, I do, exactly.
That relates to the movies.
And my mother says to me, "Watch that credit card." I have an imitation Oscar that I had gotten from a place in California. It was called Everything Hollywood, and it's a replica, but it looks real. It's the same weight, the same height, and everything. And they were filming a movie called The Brits Are Coming, which hasn't been released yet. And I got a call from the proprietor of the store asking me if I would be willing to lend my imitation Oscar to this film company because they had an Academy Award sequence. So I agreed to it, and they told me that I would be given honorary tickets at the premiere. Now, this is about 3 years ago. And I keep looking, but there's no sign of this movie being released in this century. Anyway.
So you don't have the tickets in hand yet, huh?
No, not yet. I'm thinking, how am I going to go? As a priest, or do I have to get a tuxedo? Or
Now, who's in that movie? Is it a big name
Uma
movie?
Thurman.
Oh.
I forget who else it was. It's been a while ago since I checked over.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a comedy.
Do you have a favorite movie?
Well, if you would ask my family, they would tell you it was probably King of Kings that I've probably seen.
Which one? There are a
The one
couple
with
of
Jeffrey
versions.
Hunter.
Okay.
Right, right, yeah. But I like the historical epics. I like some comedies. Musicals I like. But I favor the historical epics.
Now, it's one thing to have a favorite movie, but it's also another thing to say that this is the best movie ever made. If you were to choose, you know, what is the best movie that was ever made, what would you think, in your opinion?
That I've seen, I would probably say Gone with the Wind.
Do you like The Godfather? Everybody
Oh,
loves
The Godfather, yes, all 3 parts, even though a lot of people didn't like part 3. I liked all 3.
So where did the idea of priesthood come from then? I mean, you grew up, you wanted to be an actor?
Well,
and you're
from
performing?
my 2 grandmothers, because when I was a kid, I went to St. Francis of Assisi School, and what was then called Flatbush, now I think they call it Prospect Lefferts Gardens.
Yes.
So neighborhoods change. But I was in St. Francis of Assisi school, and I liked to draw. And I would draw, priests in their vestments. I had the Sisters of St. Joseph, so I would draw them in their habits. I draw Christ on the cross. And so I guess my two grandmothers took from that I was going to grow up and be a priest. And that idea hadn't entered my head. I said, no, I want to be a movie star. And I remember at my first Mass, when I gave my thank you speech, I said to my two grandmothers, now you can say, we told you so.
Well, there's a sense, I mean, in a sense, you're performing when
Well,
you're up on the,
you're the leader of prayer, and you have to be,
And you also have I know you have another love, another hobby, so to speak, but you have a couple of cats, right?
I have two kittens, although they were just a year old. Originally I had a German Shepherd dog, Heidi, but she passed away about 14 years ago. And then 2 months later, I found this orange and white cat on my mother's stoop. So he just walked right into the house, made himself at home. I fed him, he jumped in my lap and fell asleep, and my sister said, Jesus sent him to you. So I had him for 12 years. He just passed away last year. And then I wanted to replace him because they become your family. And when you're at night, when you're alone in your room, you miss that closeness. So I adopted two kittens. My cousin had a litter of 5. So I have an orange and white cat that I named Taya, after Taya Leone from Madam Secretary. See, the television movies get in there. And then the other darker one is Kaylee, who I'm named after Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory. So they were just a year old. They keep me on my toes.
How does that work out in rectory living? I mean, do you have to have the permission, or the other priests in the parish, they have to go along with that? They have to get along with it?
Oh yeah, no, they don't mind. Well, I keep them in my apartment, so they don't go running around the rectory, which is, fair to the other priests. Especially, they're so fast. People are in and out of the rectory. And they see an open door in their history. So I keep them in my room. I tend to them, I play with them.
Now, you went to St. Francis School, you said.
St. Francis of Assisi.
Right. But then you went to public high school, right?
I did. Well, my dad had lost his job. He was a printer. And I didn't feel that it would be appropriate for me to ask them to spend extra money, even though in those days the tuition isn't anything like it is today.
But we didn't make money the way you used to either.
No, that's true. So I felt fine. I went to Erasmus Hall High School. And then after Erasmus, I had worked for 2 years at First National City Bank. And as I was, going on in time, it wasn't until college that I decided that I'd listen to my two grandmothers. And I felt the Lord's call then.
Where were you going to college?
I had gone to New York City Community College on J Street for 2 years. I got my Associate in Arts degree. And then I worked for another year. And then I went to Brooklyn College. It's at that time that I decided I wanted to go into the priesthood. So I had gotten all my information, what was required at Huntington, and I adjusted my courses at Brooklyn College. So I had to take a lot of philosophy. Matter of fact, in Brooklyn College, you only needed 18 credits of philosophy. Huntington required 24. So in order to satisfy Huntington's requirements, I automatically got my BA in philosophy at Brooklyn College.
All right, well, that's a good transitional point. We're going to take a quick break. We're taking a quick break, then we're coming right back here to On the Block, so stay with us. Welcome back to On the Block. I'm Ed Wilkinson, talking today with Father Ron D'Antonio. Father Ron, we were talking a little bit about your education with Erasmus Hall, and then you took a job. You're working in banking, you said?
First National City Bank.
To me, that doesn't sound very exciting.
No, it doesn't.
Why did you?
Especially, I didn't like math.
Well, why did you choose to go into that field then?
Well, my cousin had worked in the bank there, and he had mentioned it to me, and it was something that was available to me at that time. So I figured I would try it. Never intended to make a career out of it, although my father wanted me to. but God had other plans for me.
Yeah, yeah. So you said you were at Brooklyn College when you started ruminating about this idea of priesthood again. Obviously, you must have stayed close to the church, even though you were in secular colleges. And
Yes.
How did you stay close to the church? To
Well,
the
we
parish?
lived right around the corner from St. Francis of Assisi, but my parents, and I also credit a lot the Sisters of St. Joseph. They were a big influence in my life, and it's just ironic that all the parishes I've been in, with the exception of St. Clair's, we've had the Sisters of St. Joseph.
Wow.
So a lot of them had followed me all around. Yeah, but I would say that. Plus, my own personal faith. Yeah, because I was always interested in the lives of the saints. I read sections of the Bible, and it was something that was important in my life.
Yeah. Was there a moment when the light went on and you said, all right, enough of this, I'm going to make an application?
Well,
what
it's funny you should ask that, because when I was going to community college downtown Brooklyn, I saw a lot of young people on their way to school. I was working at the time, rather. And I just felt like something within me, something like a magnet pulling. And I took that to be a sign from the Lord that He was asking me to do something with my life. And so it was then, after that experience, that I decided to go back to college and then to seriously pray over and entertain the thoughts of the priesthood. I said my grandmothers were right after all.
Were you involved with the Newman clubs? I know there's a big Newman club at Brooklyn College, right?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't?
In elementary school, I was involved in nothing. I was a Boy Scout for a day. When I heard that they met on Saturdays, I said, no, I have to watch my cartoons on Saturday. I was in the music, I was in the choir at St. Francis. I was there for a while, but I wasn't such a great singer then. And I tired of it, and I told the music director that I wanted to leave, and he says, if you grow up, you're going to become a hoodlum. So I told my father, and he called the music director, and that was the end of my music career.
What did your parents say when you finally said to them, I'm thinking about going to the seminary?
Well, I can remember like it was yesterday. We were at dinner, all 5 of us, and I said to them, I think I've decided I'd like to become a priest. Well, my sister Carolyn, God rest her, just looked and smiled at me. And my mother says, I always knew that. My brother could care less, he kept eating. And my father said, you better get that idea out of your head.
Wow.
So I said, why? He says, do you realize what you're giving up? I said, well, I didn't just wake up this morning and say, I think I'll be a priest. I said, I've thought about it, I understand. But it was strange, after I was ordained, he made a 180-degree turn. When I was made pastor at St. Clair's in Rosedale, he asked me to come to the bank with him on Avenue U. So we went to the bank, and as we walked in, all the tellers started clapping. I said, you told everybody? He said, yeah, I did. So he was proud after that.
Yeah. What do you remember about Ordination Day? Because at the time when you were ordained individually, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have the pastoral year yet, but with my class, and I think the class behind me, we were ordained deacons in January 1976 at Douglaston. And then I was asked to go to Our Lady of Angels in Bay Ridge. So I was there. There was no room in the rectory for me. So I lived with the Franciscan brothers, which was a nice experience for me because they were all my age. And I got to have 2 dinners at night. That's when I started putting on weight. But I enjoyed the year. The idea, as I understand it, was that you're living and working and ministering in a parish. And then at ordination time, it's the parish calling you to ordination, which really made a lot of sense to me. And but it was a good year. I had worked in Bay Ridge Hospital, and I had 6 Eucharistic ministers help me, so that the hospital, there was a minister available every day of the week to bring people communion. And then I'd bring the names to the rectory for anyone that needed confession. And I would do counseling. I was able to witness weddings. The schools were always a passion that I had. I was always in the schools. And so I was the moderator of CCD, and I still am. And so I fit in. I really felt that this is what God wanted me to do.
And so you felt that was a good preparation for a later ministry?
Oh yes,
then,
exactly.
How about when you went to, like you said, you went to Brooklyn College and secular schools, and then you went into the seminary. Was that a tough transition? Like, did you have enough credits, like, all of a sudden to qualify to go into the seminary with the philosophy and things like that?
Well, Brooklyn College only required 18 credits of philosophy to get a degree. Huntington required 24. So in order to meet Huntington's requirements, I automatically got my BA degree in philosophy from Brooklyn College. But I didn't really find it a tough transition at all. I had never lived away from home before, but my class was, they were very open and acceptable. So I fit right in. They included me in everything. So, I never really had a hard transition, even from the secular to religious. Because in my own life, I was more spiritual and religious, so I never really found that.
You were a little bit older than the rest of the guys in the class?
I was 2 years older because I had worked for 2 years after high school at Citibank.
Yeah.
And then it was First National Citibank.
Yeah. So on the ordination day itself, as you said, it was in Our Lady of Angels
Our Lady of Angels.
which is a big, beautiful church, and it's been used for Episcopal ordinations,
Right, exactly.
The big ceremonies, diocesan ceremonies. What was ordination day like? Was it a bit intimidating for you?
I was a nervous wreck because it was just going to be me, and I practiced in my room, I don't know how many times, the responses to the bishop. When I walked into church, it's a massive church, as you know, I sat in the front row, then I was called up. When I turned around, the church was packed. And so it was an interesting experience, and it was 90 degrees that day.
They didn't have air
April
conditioning
23rd.
then?
I don't think they
I don't
did
think
that
they did
day.
either.
No. But I remember it was a hot one. And then I had my first Mass at St. Simon and Jude the following day.
That was your home parish
That was
at
my
the
home
time?
parish. Yeah, because we moved there. As a matter of fact, this year it's 50 years that we left Flatbush, Lefferts Prospects Gardens to move to Gravesend. So I had my first Mass there.
Is there a particular moment in the ceremony that stands out in your memory?
I would say when you hold out your hands and the bishop consecrates your hands with oil, then they place the paten and the host in your hand. That's what I remember. Unfortunately, I don't even have one picture of my ordination because videos were just coming out at that time. I remember after ordination, I bought myself an ordination gift, and it was a video recorder. It was, they called it the Great Time Machine by Quasar. And the cassettes were like a hardcover book. They were that big. And I remember looking in the TV guide one day, and they had all these pre-recorded movies. So I sent a letter to them with my request, and I was told, we're sorry, but your brand isn't compatible with these. You need a VHS machine. So for my passion for the movies,
the passion continues.
I sold the Quasar, and I bought my first RCA VHS machine, and it started there.
We're going to take another quick break. We've been talking with Father Ron D'Antonio. We're here in Bensonhurst today. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to On the Block. I'm Ed. This is Father Ron, and we've been talking about your trip to the priesthood, your journey to the priesthood. A little older than some of the other guys in the class, but not too much. And you said it was a nice, comfortable fit. So we talked about ordination. That was Bishop McGoverill, right?
Bishop McGoverill, yes.
Yeah. Did the bishop have any words of wisdom for you about how to be a good priest? What do you remember him saying to you?
I guess he said, always be faithful, pray, be close to the Lord in the Eucharist, which is, very important.
Sure. What's your first assignment? Where'd they send you?
My first assignment was St. Robert Bellarmine in Bayside. As a matter of fact, my pastor in Our Lady of Angels was the late Monsignor Altman. And he said to me, I know where you're going. He says, it's a parish where I've been. So I knew where he had been. Then I got my letter, and I said, Monsignor, I'm going to St. Robert's in Bayside. And he was taken back. He said, I thought you were going to St. Andrew Avellino. Because I was there. I said, no. So I assumed they sent me there so I would learn how to drive, which I did. I got there in June of '77. I called AAA. I took driving lessons the whole summer. And St. Robert's in that time, Bayside Hills was quiet. You didn't see a soul on the street. So I took my lessons for 2 months, and in September I got my license.
And what was it like? How many years were you there in Bayside?
I was there from 1977 to June of '85.
Okay, so that's a good stretch
Nice.
for you. It's a little longer than people are sent to their first assignment.
Today, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's about 5 years.
What
today.
kind of ministries did you delve into at that point?
Well, I was always involved with sacramental ministry in the school. The school, as I said, I always had a passion for teaching too. And I was always in the school. I was involved with the religious ed program, CCD. I did adult education. I was involved with the training of the lectors and ministers, RCIA. So it was a lot of the educational and sacramental ministry.
So was it from there that you went to St. Fidelis?
From there I went to St. Clair's in Rosedale.
Oh.
I was with Monsignor McCullough, God rest his soul.
Oh, yes, he was a great guy, huh?
And then I just brought my ministry from St. Robert's with me, CCD, the school, RCIA, adult education, communion calls and everything like that. And then while I was there, Monsignor had been transferred to St. Anthony's
in Greenpoint.
Greenpoint.
Yeah.
And Father Arnaud, God rest him, had come. He was sickly when he came.
Yeah.
And he passed away after, I guess, maybe 3 or 4 years. And I had taken my mother and father shopping, and we had just got back from Wallbounds. And the phone rang, and it was Father Mike Gribben, the other associate at St. Clair's. And he said to me, "Ron, Bishop McGovro called." So I said, "I know what he wants." So I called him. He says, "Ron," he says, "you've been at St. Clair's a while now. How about you being the pastor?" I never said yes. I said, "Well, if that's what you would like, Bishop, okay."
Now you do take a little promise of obedience
Yes,
to the bishop
we do.
if he wants it.
Exactly. And I was the pastor there for 4 years. It was a very nice parish, a changing area, but the people were wonderful. But my own personal hang-ups, I started developing high blood pressure, anxiety, and it was really starting to affect my health. And I'm more of a teacher than an administrator. God bless, there are people who can do administration well, like Monsignor Casado. He does it very well. But I was never really comfortable in the position. And I said, it's not fair to these people if I continue. I said, it may sound selfish, but I think I have to be true to myself. And that's why I went to see Bishop Daly at the time. And he had said to me, well, I can understand that. He says, why don't you take a sabbatical? I said, well, what do you mean a sabbatical? He said, you go and you study. And I said to him, Bishop, I'm looking to get stuff out of my head, not put stuff in. So I was home for the summer, and then I went to St. Fidelis in College Point. I was there for 12 years.
Yeah, that's a long stretch there, too. Yeah. That's a pretty active parish, right? Was there a lot of youth ministry there?
It was youth ministry, and I was involved in everything that I had been involved before, CCD, the school. I taught in the school in all the parishes. And so I was comfortable. I felt that this was what the Lord wanted me to do. And I was hoping that I was making an effect on the lives of some people. As Monsignor McCullough said, you're never going to please everybody, which I know.
Monsignor McCullough was kind of a rough, tough guy.
He was a man's man.
Right?
Yes, he was a chaplain. And it's ironic that I'm with another police chaplain
That's
now.
right, yeah. And he had been a paratrooper in the Army before that, remember?
That's right.
I remember a famous picture of him saying Mass out on a battlefield
That's
somewhere.
right.
I think it was in Vietnam, and he loved to show that off,
Right, exactly.
He was a great guy.
He was terrific. Yeah.
How has parish life changed, since you've been ordained? Certainly priesthood is not the same today as it was in 1977. How has parish life, the day-to-day life of a priest, changed?
Well, I think some people have become more cynical toward the church, especially in the light of the sex scandals by some clergy. And I remember when this all came out, you'd go out on the altar and you felt like everybody was judging you the way they would judge other people who had been identified. And so I felt a little inhibited. But for the majority of people are very supportive, very friendly, and so I quickly got over that negative feeling.
What's your greatest satisfaction as a priest?
to be able to offer the Eucharist, hear confessions, because some people come into the confessional, especially around the holidays, have been away for 20 and 30 years, and you can see the pain in their faces that they've been carrying this weight around. And when we talk, and when they hear their sins have been forgiven, and when we part, I usually shake hands with them, you can just see the whole change in their demeanor. You know, the smile on the face, that this great weight has been lifted from them. So that's,
What do you say to people? Because a lot of people are afraid to go to confession after being away for so long.
Right.
You know, and I think sometimes they refer to that as bringing in the big fish.
That's it, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
what do you say to those people?
I say to
calm
them,
them
well,
down?
you know, if you have, if you're sick physically, you go to a doctor, you sit down with the doctor and you explain your symptoms. I say, well, it's similar to going to confession. You're talking about your spiritual sins, we'll talk about it, and the great physician will heal you and cure you. And so that sort of makes sense to them. Yeah. I know penance is probably the most difficult sacrament that we have, come to, because it forces us to take a look at ourselves. And many times we don't like to look at ourselves and admit that we're capable of this, that, and the other thing.
So you admit that your grandmothers were right.
My grandmothers were right.
You're happy as a priest,
I'm
right?
happy as a priest, yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
We've been talking with Father Ron D'Antonio, and we've been here in St. Athanasius in Bensonhurst. Thanks so much for being with us today,
Thank you very much,
Father
Ed.
Ron.
My pleasure.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. Make sure you tune in next time.